I can't do punk jazz.
Sure you can. Why couldn't you do punk jazz? That's my question.
Punk jazz. See, now I'm stuck because I can only think of my own particular riff. I could do my riff in a style of punk jazz. That rup, I don't know. That's the punk part.
Did that work?
Hey everyone, welcome to Disorganized Play. I'm not a musician, really, of any considerable talent. I'm your host, Tom Lommel. This is Dom Zook. Over here, where you can't see him, is Harold the Pug, and we are here to plan tomorrow night's Iron Keep game, or to talk about the potential elements that lay ahead of us. None of these streams actually plan out in full what's going to happen, but we do talk about what happened in the previous episode that is unresolved. We talk about what sort of elements lay ahead of us that need to be introduced, and we talk about how we can combine those things to make the most dynamic session possible. So that's our task before us each and every Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we play the game, and on Thursday, we come back here and talk about how it did or did not work successfully. Mm-hmm. Now, since I was not here Thursday for the recap, I don't want to have a big recap, and it's not on the agenda. We have a few things on our agenda, but I feel like we can also take some time to review my thoughts. Obviously, Dom and Gaurav reviewed kind of their perspective of how the session went and where we're at in the campaign. And I think we can take some time to review my thoughts on how that session went. Yes, I agree with Emperor Riptide. It was fun to see the party get into a super meaty fight last week. That was sort of the tough choice that was presented to them. Like, they could kind of follow Gingy out and just sort of leave the scene without being implicated, or they could get involved in this fight. And they decided to do that. The tough choice also might have been, are we going to straight up murder Gingy, or are we going to negotiate with him? There were a couple of different ways to kind of play that or to interpret what that meant. I like to give the party tough choices. If you have followed the stream for any length of time, like, those are the interesting role-playing moments. So, like, what do you want to do? I don't like to put them in too many dickish kind of catch-22s where it's like, well, where they feel like they definitely have to pick one way, or they feel like both choices completely suck and they're going to doom themselves. Like, I think you should be sparing with that type of choice.
So the worst is when you give them a choice and they know they have to take the hard choice, and then you make them regret taking the hard choice.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like the DM is just, you're just toying with them, and players, the problem is, like, ostensibly you can do anything in a role-playing game, right? But the players know that the only choices they really have are the choices that they have information for. It's very rare that they will just invent a third choice that's not somehow a synthesis of something that's already on the table or has happened previously. So the DM really is the arbiter of what the players can do. So that means if you present them with a super, like, oh, I don't know why you did that, because that was stupid. I've been in that game, right? Yeah. And it makes you angry. It makes you very frustrated. Like, well, what were we supposed to do? Well, you could have gone off and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, yeah, what? Well, that didn't seem like an option to us.
Right.
So that's I agree with you on that front, that you have to be careful. Like, I like deploying tough choices, but you have to be careful about overplaying that tool in your tool bag, right? So let's talk briefly about what our topics are today. So we're going to talk about a matter of investigation. We've been running this mystery thing, and we're 6 sessions into it, and I feel like it's kind of gone off the rails and become this point of frustration for the party. So that's uncool. We're going to talk about some of our open plot threads, And then we're going to talk about my dinner with Xanathar, because that's really where we're coming up to next session for sure. That's an event that we can for sure plot into tomorrow night's offerings, because we know that they've been summoned by Xanathar, unless they really decide to jump the guy who told them that they need to show up. Which is possible.
That was on Gaurav's mind.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you don't know. There might be way more people beyond him past that door, right? We only got to the door.
Yeah.
So
I also feel like Xanathar is the kind of guy who invites you once politely, and then the second time it is very unpleasant if he makes you show up.
Right.
But that's hard, because that's a bit of world lore that I have assumed or imbued that NPC with, that the characters and the players may not necessarily know or respect. Sometimes you fall into that problem in D&D where everybody assumes that whatever challenge is ahead of them is appropriate somehow for their level. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this guy wants us to come show up. Well, guess what? We just turned level 6. I want to flex my muscles. F this guy. And start stabbing. And I think that really got introduced in kind of the 3.0 kind of era, where there were challenge rating tables, and you weren't supposed to throw like a CR 12 monster at a third level party. Like that was somehow dirty pool, right? And previously in AD&D, I think it was more of an adversarial relationship with the DM, where the DM was like, I'll send an ancient red dragon after you if I want, and then you'll just have to suck it up and figure out your way to get out of it. Which also is kind of the other end of the extreme, right? And so I feel like expectations they've sort of like rolled downhill to that, like, well, we could probably take on whatever we want. And what the players don't realize is I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to the challenge rating of a monster.
Right.
I mean, they just fought a CR 10 or 12 demon. That thing was pretty briefy. Now, once we got into the big fight, I softballed it a little bit by having some guards around who could soak hits, and having some collateral damage that could be inflicted, which was more like points against a moral victory than they were points against out and out dying. On the other hand, there was just some really bad dice luck there in that combat too, where I rolled like 3 straight rolls under 10 and missed when I had like a +10 or a +12 on the roll. So that was pretty brutal as well. So anyway, those are the things that we're going to, that's on our agenda today. Before we get to that, I think to briefly recap the session, so they had the conversation with Gingy. The main thing, so we talked a lot, Dom and Gaurav talked a lot on Thursday about, what kind of big bad or what kind of recurring villain Gingy is. And I want to put a slight twist on that, in that I don't necessarily see Gingy as a villain at this point, because he has honestly aided the party so many times now that you can't. He could come after them. Like, he could have poisoned them by now if he wanted to. Yeah. Right. It's been long enough since they let him out into the world and go do his thing, that I'm sure he could have arranged some sort of, just by virtue of the fact that he just showed up. Like, they didn't necessarily know he was there, but he just shows up in the theater. That's him, like, expressing his largesse and kind of tipping his hand, like, I'm here, and I'm a poisoner. I don't have to show up in order to mess with you, but I've decided to show up because I want to have a conversation, rather than just feed you a bunch of, wyvern pellets and out and out choke you out, to kill you off through some sort of subterfuge or whatever. That would be an interesting way to introduce him, is like characters begin getting sick and you can't figure out why.
Right.
And then it would turn into a more active quest of like, it's got to be Gingy. How do we find him? That's a whole other mystery. One of the reasons I didn't introduce him that way is because that then becomes a whole new plot line.
Yeah.
So I don't see him necessarily as a villain. I see him as a foil to the party, right? So he's not necessarily out to get them, but he's sort of out there to like keep them on the gray side of the moral ambiguity. Like, you know.
Yeah. His requests and his impetus in the whole campaign has been to sort of draw them down to his level in a way, and keep them there.
Yeah.
No big heroics or anything, for them. They have to stay in the shadows for the most part.
They have to do things that are sort of morally compromising in order to get what they want, because he wants the same thing. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know that you lit this up. This looks great. Yeah, that's super cool. Fancy. So, you know, so that was that. The one thing that I thought was clear that apparently was not clear is that Gingy said straight up, I can't give you a person who's complicit in the plot. I'm not going to lead you there, because that person could then turn around and finger me, and that doesn't do me any good, because the whole point of me talking to you is I want to keep my identity safe, and I'm giving you the information you need so that you don't implicate me. Like, that's the trade-off, is keep my piece of it anonymous, but then you can out the whole rest of everything else that happens. I don't know if it's the best plan, but that's what he has on offer, right? And the players, I don't know if they're just so hungry to figure out what's going on that they misinterpreted that, or, you know, it's a variety of different things that are happening. But then they went and interviewed Cyrus Wintersteel, who is innocent, right? Like, it's very well established based on the line of questioning that they gave, you know, that they went through on last week's session, like, which was frustrating to them. But I thought, I had that moment, like, you know, I always give this DM advice of think about whether your players have a better idea than you, or have an idea that's as good as the one that you have, right? And I was literally in that moment when they got all excited about, like, oh, Cyrus Wintersteel is the one, and he's got all these da-da-da, and he's the dirty one, and I was like, boy, I could almost just have him confess, and it would all be over, and they would be happy, and that would be that. I obviously didn't take that advice. But it also sort of destroys like Gingy's motivation for reaching out to them, right? I don't know, in a way. I also feel like at this point it's like let's chase this thing down in a more exact and fulfilling way. Yeah. Right. So I didn't take my own advice on that piece of it. You know, my chat is not refreshing on this thing. I hate my iPad. I don't know why. I think it does that.
I think sometimes the iPad will lose signal.
Loses a connection or whatever.
When it recycles the signal and stuff, when it's searching for a better one and stuff, it won't like lock down.
It's weird.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's just close that. Just close. Go away. I'm done with you now. Emperor Riptide says, I like how Gingy plays against Eric's new redemption oath and his more moral gray area feel. Yeah. And Christian Linky, I definitely agree that no one is innocent, right? Like I thought we got to a really interesting place with Cyrus Wintersteel, where they were asking him all these questions under Zone of Truth. Yeah. And he actually got to say some stuff that were deep emotional truths, if not. Yeah, right. There was also that moment, like, are you hiding anything here that you wouldn't want us to see? And he's like, well, yes, in my nightstand, I do have some items of personal entertainment that I don't think I'm not interested in revealing to you.
Yep. It's not a pack of cards.
It's not a pack of cards. So what I liked about that moment, though, was it was very personal, and it was borderline without being outright tasteless. Yeah. Right? Like it was loaded with the appropriate amount of sort of like humanity, but also like, I don't know, dignity or whatever, right? Like we didn't have to. It wasn't just like a gross. We could have made a gross moment out of it.
I was surprised, actually, honestly, with this cast that it was not taken anywhere.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, that they didn't just murder him and then like, all right, we rifle through the drawer.
He's clearly still hiding something.
But also the whole emotional truth of Fyrus said, you know, what would you not tell somebody or whatever? And he's like, well, I've got all this fame and fortune and recognition and all these lovers, and it really doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I'm really not happy or satisfied by any of it. Which it was also, I think, an interesting character development moment. Now, the players clearly were chasing a moment of, let's resolve something in the plot. Let's resolve the mystery. They were on a factual investigation, not on in a moment of like, let's explore this interesting character and find out more about this guy. Also, I feel like they just sort of don't like him, right? I mean, he is very wealthy. He's very well renowned. He has a lot of privileges that he has either been paid for or been afforded due to like his fame. And yeah, I got the feeling they're kind of like, this fucking guy. Like, let's turn him over to the authorities and throw him to the dogs and kind of take down the mighty, which was interesting, an interesting kind of take on their motivation. Anyway, so I realized that was not a satisfying conclusion of that interaction. But that's the way that went down.
Yeah.
And then we got the summons from this imposing bodyguard, capo guy, whatever he is, to go meet with Xanathar. So I mentioned this on Thursday as well. I think in terms of, just to get into a little bit more of the matter of investigation. So there's a couple different things going on, right? One of which is half the party is taking notes and kind of like keeping track of, half the party is taking notes. How well they're taking notes is a matter of, Farquad, what's up? Half of taking notes is a matter of interpretation, and that's really the kind of the key thing around the table, is that everybody has a different interpretation of what clues are relevant, what's important, even what clues they remember, right? Yeah. And just because you take notes on it doesn't mean that you remember it. How many times have we been like, flip, 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 oh yeah. And it's really difficult because I, as the DM, I know the whole plot, right? Or I know what the whole plot should be. And I also can decide whether that is in fact the plot or not. So as someone pointed out in chat a couple weeks ago, I always know what's relevant and what's not relevant, and what contextually is important and what is not important. Whereas the players always have this kind of thing of everything has equal importance until it starts forming a pattern, and then they start discarding stuff. Well, they can start forming a pattern on their own that has nothing to do with what you have planned, and all of a sudden they're into Fyrus Wintersteel is the is the dirty dog, and let's get them, right? Yeah, BSB Care says it feels like dealing with students as if you're grading at tests. It feels like, I told them this, why don't they remember that? Right. And I think some of that is certainly on me. Like, some of it is you have to kind of drop. It's hard because when you're developing a mystery, you don't want to drop so many clues on the same thing that they immediately solve it, right? But on the other hand, if you don't drop several clues that all subtly point at the same thing, then they kind of like they wander kind of aimlessly. And I think, as we talked about last week, they have been going from meet with an NPC says go meet with this guy, go meet with that guy, he says go meet with this guy, and they start following this trail just sort of without creating a context for it, but just because the motivation is, why don't you go see, they've been told to go do it. Right. And so it doesn't form a basis of understanding. I think that's part of the problem, right? But I will say, as I brought up last week briefly in the chat, I think they would benefit from looking at the actual evidence that they've accumulated and then talking about it to try and recreate a new context, or at least look at the solid leads that they have or the solid pieces of evidence that they have and see if they can then redirect their focus, and instead of just going kind of like wildly from person to person going, who should we talk to next, who should we talk to next, they actually go forward with their investigation with purpose.
Right.
And I think that's the real trick in developing a mystery, is to give the players a sense of purpose in what they're pursuing, as opposed to leading them by the nose. Because that's what I hate about every mystery thing, right? I guess we just go talk to this guy, and it doesn't feel motivated, it doesn't feel like you have any stakes to it, etc. Who is this?
Montrevant?
Oh, Montrevant. I can't read purple on gray on our screen here. Montrevant says, I have moments where I give them clues and then let them unwittingly decide what that clue actually means. As long as it actually fits within the scope of the campaign, I'll run with it. Yeah, and I think that's a good technique, right? And obviously, in last week's session, I had that moment to decide whether the clue of go talk to Fyrus Wintersteel actually fit into, actually meant something. And I chose not to do that. Emperor Riptide says they need one of those evidence board the police always set up. Yeah. I think that I want to just talk about one other issue in terms of we're really talking about an improvisational style of GMing, right? When we talk about, well, we're just going to chum some elements out there, and this is certainly like part of my wheelhouse. We're going to chum some elements out there and then let them talk it out, and then whatever they decide is what it is what it becomes, right? So it goes from a bunch of undefined amorphous, what I call Schrodinger's clues, to the players observe it, chew on it, respond, react to it, and decide, oh, this is what the specific thing is, this is what it means, right? And I always want to make sure that instead of going with a yes and style of improvisation, which is kind of what that is. Like I give them some stuff, and then they decide what it means, and we go and investigate that thing, and that turns out that's what it is. That doesn't live up to, or it's difficult to make that live up to the promise of D&D, or promise of a role-playing game, or a promise of a game that has a dungeon master and that kind of like information separation, authority separation, right? What I mean by that is your job as the GM is to not just navigate the rules and adjudicate the plot and the player's actions, but it's also to provide a challenge to the players. And in combat, the challenge is, oh, here's a tough monster, roll dice and fight it, and hopefully it won't kill you. But in a mystery exploration, the challenge is figuring something out that's not what you think it is, right? So that's the trick, is that there still has to be a reveal. That it might be like what you thought it was, like what the reasons that led you to that place are still valid, but when you get down to, was it Fyrus Wintersteel, the answer is, no, it was actually so-and-so. Oh, that makes sense. Now they've overcome the obstacle. Whereas if what they say is what it is, there's no obstacle there. They're just marching forward. They just go, oh, okay, we found this. Oh, that must mean that the leading man in the show probably was behind the poisoning. Let's go talk to him. Were you involved in the poisoning? Oh, well, you caught me. Yes, I was. Aha. Okay. What were you trying to do? Were you trying to, sully the reputation of the director? Yes, I was. Okay. There's no challenge. It's not like there are moments where you have to reward the players with a win, where you need to hand them like, yes, you were right. But more often than not, when you're presenting them an informational type of obstacle, it has to be, you're close but not quite there. It's what you thought it was, except it's twisted. It's you're off axis by a little bit, and then they go, oh. So that's something that that's been sticking in my craw kind of for the past few days, is like, yes and always comes up as an improvisational technique, and we always talk about like running games off, shooting from the hip and how to do it. And I certainly, like last session, a lot of it was shot from the hip. So, but my personal philosophy is it's not yes and, it's no but. And saying no to the players is a really, like, that's very that's what you do all the time as a DM, but in the improv world, they'll always tell you like, no, never say no to an idea.
Right.
Yeah. It's no but, so you accept part of the idea.
You have to,
you're not 100% right. You're like 60% right. You're 85% right. You're 25% right. Oh, here's who it really is. Ah! You know. So that's just a piece of GMing philosophy that I want to caution you about deploying, and caution you when you're getting advice on, especially improv and DMing, that yes and is going to lead you to some weird and terrible places that aren't dramatically fulfilling, right? Because essentially what we're doing is we're creating moments of drama where there's suspense and a buildup, and then what did we find out? Oh, right? And suspense and drama are never built by going, yep, okay. One of the things that's so disappointing about like the first Iron Man movie, which I love, is that it's very clear that Obadiah Stane is going to be the big villain at the end, right? like after the first half an hour, if you haven't figured that out, it's like, oh. And one of the reasons is because you're like, there's no reveal, there's no challenge to figuring out, okay, what's going to be the big showdown here? It's like all of a sudden he's got the suit, he shows up, and they start fighting.
Yeah.
It's not a great moment of drama or suspense. And you also like question like, why is Tony so stupid? And like, why didn't Pepper clearly is onto this guy.
Yeah, right.
Why is Tony such a doofus about it? So, anyway, that's a side point. So I think in terms of a matter of investigation, they need to. So we talked about the fact that everybody's got a different perspective and everybody has a different context for what's happening, and people either forget or keep track of different clues and create their own meaning or wait for each of them, right? In terms of where we're at this point in the session, I think if we were to sit down and make a list of, okay, well, we have these broadsheets. Like those have sort of been forgotten, right? Those have kind of like, I kind of keep bringing them up, but if you look at the broadsheets, and I think I've put them in the Dropbox for at least the Patreon backers, you will see a set of names that kind of keep coming up and theaters that kind of keep swirling around, and kind of an angle that's been placed on the whole perspective of what went down. Now there's this whole cult of Asmodeus thing that's happening that's not in there, but it'll be very interesting to see what the next broadsheet looks like, right? Like that's kind of an action item for me is, do we release another broadsheet? Mm-hmm. And I think it might be very useful for the party to have another one to then compare to the other three and start kind of like painting their picture with.
Right.
That's not a heavy-handed way of going, well, you idiots, why didn't you look at this? But I think it's useful when you're this deep into an investigation and it's just not clicking for the players to sit down with them and go, what do you know? What do you have actual physical evidence on? You have the broadsheets. I believe they collected those scripts from thing, right?
They have them.
Mm-hmm.
They did get them, yes.
So they have those. They have. I'm trying to think what other physical pieces of evidence they have. They technically would have that wine bottle. They would have access to the wine bottle that had the poison in it, or the goblet, like those two things.
The goblet,
wine,
right.
For sure. They would be able to at least put their hands on that. They have observed some interactions between various people. They've talked to a couple people, or to 3 or 4 people, and gotten testimony from them, right? So in terms of evidence that they have, like, you make a list, and then as they start talking about what those things are, you have a moment as a GM in sort of a metagame context to clarify points that maybe they misinterpreted or they haven't latched onto. Now it's much easier to clarify things that they've misinterpreted. It's more difficult to go, no, I think there's another thing that you've got, and then they just kind of feel stupid because they've completely forgotten about it, and then you go, don't you know about the those scripts? Didn't you take those scripts? Then of course it is a matter of clarifying for you as the GM too, because I don't know whether Avril actually took them or not. I know she looked at them, right?
Yeah, I think Megan might have them. I don't know. I know that Eric, I think, read them because I remember them talking about because there was some.
I don't know that they read the scripts. Because,
the scripts.
Because Avril was up in the office.
Right.
And she stayed up there while they walked into the theater and all that weird stuff happened. They never kind of connected, right? It was Avril was separated up here, and they went in through the lobby, and then there was the whole stage fight that happened, and there was interaction with Gingy, and then they went back out onto the street and fought the thing. So I don't know that the rest of the party had that chance to look at the scripts.
Right.
I think there's the assumption that everybody got told about them, but whether she actually took them or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing for me to clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much harder to bring up, oh, you've completely forgot about this, than it is to go, you know, that's not exactly what he said.
Right.
You're remembering that differently than what actually went down. Sometimes I have to question myself, am I remembering it differently? Did I say something that I didn't actually mean to say?
Well, if they don't remember it, then it's up to you.
But I think it's worthwhile when you're playing a mystery investigation game, rather than letting the players hang and just kind of like try and chum out different leads for them to follow, to have a moment where they regroup and you go, okay, what do you know? What do you actually know? Let's review. Let's take a moment, and as somebody in chat said, let's draw the crazy map of put the things on the whiteboard and start drawing arrows and getting our string and our little thumbtacks out and making our web of conspiracy, right? So I think even though it doesn't feel like you're playing D&D at that point, it feels like you're just sort of having a roundtable discussion, like you haven't actually started the game. I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have an out of game moment to kind of get when the cart's gone so far off the rails that they then kind of you kind of pick the thing up and write it a little bit. Yeah, it's not really a version of Plot Radar, right? Like this is more actually a case of them establishing what they know and then not necessarily planning out like, oh, okay, well, here's what we don't know or whatever. Maybe it might be similar to Plot Radar, but I always think of Plot Radar as a list of possible connections rather than a list of here's the definitive things that we know, and here's how they might currently be possibly related, right? Like that's what we're looking at is here's a set of given circumstances, and here's how they might actually have existing relationships. Whereas Plot Radar to me is here's a set of elements, and here's how they might potentially in the future, as we get closer and closer and closer to encountering them, how they might actually be related. But none of that is true, right? It exists in that amorphous kind of undefined yes or no state. It exists in the realm of possibility, whereas they're trying to piece together a bunch of things that they know and establish what the actuality is. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, if we were having like really solid recaps at the beginning of every session, they might. I would make an argument if you're going to run a mystery type investigation session, have them not only recap last session, but then have them recap like the previous sessions since they started investigating the mystery, right? As long as it's not super complicated. But the problem is if you just recap the last session, then you kind of prioritize only the most immediate information that you have, and you start to just forget. I feel like if I hadn't brought up that they had those broadsheets on them last session, they would have completely spaced out on it. And I'm like, there's stuff in there that matters.
They need to lay out everything that they have. And spend a good half hour.
Talk about it. And I will say too that the adventure we're running is deliberately sort of obtuse, right? Like in the adventure as written, there are two different people who are involved in the poisoning and in the riot in the theater, and those two people are operating independently and don't actually know anything about each other. And it's not until you kind of track down one or the other that you find out why the other thing happened. So you can kind of either track down who hired the person for the riot, but they don't know anything about the poisoning, or you can track down the person who hired the poison, but they don't know anything about who started the riot.
Right.
And at the end, you find out, oh, okay, these are two independent operators who essentially have the same goal. Oh, okay. So it's weird in that doesn't make a lot of sense because it's difficult to navigate that kind of headspace because the players are always going to assume that the riot and the poisoning are intricately involved, and whoever was involved in one knows about the other.
Sure.
So it operates in a realm of kind of it really challenges the assumptions that you would naturally make.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's where we're at with the matter of investigation. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like I think it's 100% natural for people to connect those two things, and I think you have to really kind of like fight them to disconnect those two things. Until it turns out at the end, which we may end up getting to, we may not, depending on how this mystery plays out, that those two things are actually connected, but they're independently connected.
Right.
Like they both have to do with the cult of Asmodeus, right? But so at the end, they are actually. So it's this weird thing of you think that they're connected, and then you try and disabuse the players of that notion, and then they come back around and you find out they are in fact connected. It's kind of it's obtuse. It's deliberately obtuse. So.
Download Otaku, hello.
Yes, hello, welcome. All right. Yeah, you definitely always remember more as a DM than a player. Not always. I've certainly had players who were better on top of the plot than I was, and they go, "Oh, hey, actually, why does that make sense?" And I'm like, "Oh, shoot, I didn't take notes on that. I shoot from the hip a lot. This stuff." So. So that's one thing I think we'll probably do. I don't know when we'll do it in the session, right? Because we sort of cliffhangered. Last session, basically, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't think we can go, hey guys, let's take a moment apart from what's going on and talk about our mound of evidence. I don't think we can do that scene. I feel like we do have to pick up and address this whole summons from Xanathar. I want to, you need to come and meet with him. So I think in order for us to get our mind around that piece of the session, I think it's useful for those of you who've been watching for a while and for myself to kind of brainstorm, okay, Xanathar wants something from them. Now, in case it wasn't obvious, Xanathar does not show up in the adventure. If you're not playing, if you haven't been reading along, and you can download Stage Misdirections. It's a Living Forgotten Realms adventure. Just Google Living Forgotten Realms Stage Misdirection. You'll find the PDF for it. So you can see kind of where we have diverted from the plot line, where we have it. But it's a 50-page adventure, right? So there's a lot going on. But the point being, Xanathar's not in this adventure. So we're off on tangent territory here. So this is our opportunity, or my opportunity, to introduce something new, interesting, different, either to muddy the waters, divert the waters, or otherwise shut down pieces of the plot if I so choose, right? So I want to brainstorm some elements that we have kind of chummed out there or listed as potential plot threads that we could pick up on, and then think about, okay, well, would Xanathar be involved in this? Would he want to be involved in this? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, we don't have the overhead cam on, which is fine. I'm not going to write big enough that you'd be able to read it anyhow. But the number one thing that Xanathar could be involved in terms of a plot thread is he hired Candor Cotton Hollow to steal that map.
Mm-hmm.
And Candor Cotton Hollow farmed that out to the party. And then the party basically cheated him out of his just reward, right? So the party, he said, I want a copy of the map, and the party gave him an imperfect copy of the map. If you think this is going to work, I'll get a bigger piece of paper. I can do it, but I need a bigger marker.
We can zoom in.
Zoom in? No. Well, I either way. Fuckwad, where are my markers? Where's my paper? Let me get wired up here. Oh man, I have some old Adventurers League stuff in this bag, you guys. It is. Oh, do you have you have dry erase?
What are these here?
Those are wet erase.
Those are
I'm
wet
looking for like a big dry erase though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the smartest way to go about it, but here we are. What's this?
That's probably really loud because it landed right on the microphone. Sorry, guys.
Boom. I thought that microphone wasn't on. All right. Where are we? Where are we at here? What's this thing doing? Come on, knock it off. That looks pretty good.
I can move things around a little bit better.
All right. The more you try and write with it, the more it erases itself. Is that reading even?
Mm-hmm.
We're running out of gas here on this one. I hate to be a jerk about it, but
Too late, Tom. Too late.
I learned it from you, Dad. Oh, this one works great.
Okay.
All right. So the first thing that we can put on our list here is the map. So I think a very strong motivation for Xanathar to want to meet with them is to get a hold of this thing, right? That's for sure. You know, if you type your password in, they're going to be able to see half of it, so be careful. So that's one thing, right? And then by extension, we've also mentioned this thing of this is not the greatest surface, but I think it's more the surface than it is the marker, maybe. All right. Why would you want the map? The Godfire, right? So we've mentioned that there's the tomb of the Godfire in this thing, right? That. Who knows? Who knows what that is? Who knows what that means? Or it could be, what's his face? Who's the gnome that we've talked about? Whimsical. What's his name? What starts with a W? Who remembers? It's like no.
Winthorpe?
No, it's not Winthorpe. Anyway.
Yeah, we need that wiki up and running again.
I have it somewhere. Anyway, it could be something related to the whimsical gnome tinker guy, right? Or it could be related to any, something. I'm just going to put something in the expedition. Right? So that's a very like A to B kind of like let's set people up for continuing on into this expedition to the Barrier Peaks adventure, right? That's one thing. It could have something to do, as somebody pointed out here, with the cult of Asmodeus. Now, he could want to aid them, or his motivation could be to defeat them.
Don't write below this line, I think.
All right. Can't wait. Is this mic even on?
No.
I'm gonna make it move. Dick.
Still, don't write below that line.
Still don't write
Tom.
below that line. All right.
I'm warning you. Someone. If you write below that line,
All right. So that's another potential area of involvement, right? Is the cult of Asmodeus. How is Xanathar involved with them, or is it someone who is involved. So in other words, rather than him caring about whether the cult gets aided or defeated, he might care that someone who is involved either gets outed or doesn't get outed, right? And that also kind of brings up a third point here, third motivation or open plot thread as it relates to Xanathar, which is Gingy. Now, is Gingy a friend or a foe or neither of Xanathar? Xanathar is super bored. He's a fan of the theater. I mean, I don't know whether you're saying that like in sort of a whimsical manner or not, or it's just sort of like a tossed out suggestion. But those types of motivations make super powerful NPCs like this really, really interesting, right? Like I think it's okay when you have an arch level NPC, and I kind of consider Xanathar, you know, he's the head crime lord in all of Waterdeep. He must be pretty powerful to have gotten away with this, right? Those types of people have really weird, archaic interests, right? Like they get mad or get involved in things that we think are seemingly trivial, but mean a lot to them, right? Like rich people collect very odd and specific things. And so I think that's a way of, you know, you might think to a normal person like, oh, he's mad that theater's being disrupted. But to him, like, making money is not a big deal. He does that every day. He has a whole fleet of thieves who make that happen for him, and he doesn't have to do anything. But in terms of keeping the theater running in a way that he can appreciate and enjoy, that's something he doesn't have a lot of influence over, and therefore it is a challenge for him. Or it might be something that he has put a lot of money into or a lot of influence into, and therefore he gets very mad when people start meddling with it. So in that case, you know, he may want to, again, aid or defeat these people. As Richard McSundy said, Xanathar is already a really weird individual compared to regular beholders, so it's perfect for him to have weird objectives. Yeah. All right, so that's that. You know, other things that we have thrown out there as potential. You know, let me just put this theater point on here of. Is he trying to save, alter, or destroy a career? So, for instance, what if Xanathar hates Fires Wintersteel and doesn't want to have him murdered because he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to raise that profile. Or maybe he thinks it would be even more humiliating for the guy to fall from grace rather than just have him murdered. Like having him murdered is quick and convenient and painful for a very short amount of time, but going from the number one, you know, main male lead in all of Waterdeep and being a celebrated thespian to getting kicked out of the College of Bards and kind of having to beg on the street for your change for the next 60 years is a far worse fate, right? So maybe Xanathar actually has this kind of like weird motivation to either save somebody's career or build somebody's career, or he's trying to destroy somebody's career. That's weird. I think there's fingerprints on here, and that's why it's not. Yeah. Those things aren't picking up. I think it's me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the marker.
Want to try the blue one?
Let's try the blue one. Let's see what happens. It was doing well. Look at that. So much better. Yes. Xanathar should be the pinnacle of weird comic relief villains. I'm not an expert in D&D lore. When Perkins has said about Xanathar to me, anything regarding him should be hilarious and unreasonably cruel. Yeah, I certainly don't try and hew too much Forgotten Realms lore because I don't feel like I can keep up with it. So I kind of take these figures and make them my... Like, if it was up to me, Kelvin Blackstaff would still be around. But unfortunately, it's fairly canonical that he's gone. The idea of creating a career has a very Phantom of the Opera type of feel.
I do like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some other things that we've talked about that I don't know whether they're going to intersect here or not, but in terms of open plot threads, we have talked about redeeming or reforging Black Razor. And this sort of brings up the idea of, conversely, further corrupting Thawne. Right?
Or alternately, corrupting Grayson.
Or yeah, right?
Failing Thawne.
I mean, I think that's an interesting option here. Can you grab like a... Oh, just use my finger. Somebody put a red line.
Yeah, see,
All
this
right,
is why.
listen. Okay, tell you what, I can cross that red line all I want, Obama. And I think, you know, this is where you get into interesting, like, okay, the party has now caught his notice, and he's like, oh, Black Razor's in town. I want that sword working for me. I don't want that sword working against me. Mm-hmm. That feels very standard crime boss to me. Yeah. Like that feels like the actions or the motivations of a lesser crime boss, not somebody who is so powerful that they have these obtuse or whimsical motivations.
He's not omnipotent. He's not...
Right, that's true.
You know, he's not omniscient either. So...
No, I think it's... I've been playing a dangerous game because there's been a lot of NPCs just showing up, like, seemingly knowing who the party is, where they are. And I think that's... The players start to feel like, how would they even know all of this stuff? Mm-hmm. And it also definitely like stacks the deck, and we've seen that happen before, where they're like, well, they clearly know all this stuff about us, so we don't have much leverage over them. They could screw us over at any time. They just showed up because it was convenient for them, and not because they didn't want to kill us. So I think that's a good note, that you can't have everybody be omniscient. Maybe he's just curious. Mm-hmm. About who they are and what they're up to. I think a lot of it goes back to the map.
Bisbee says, makes it easy with respect to Xanathar. Avril's been flashing her badge all over the place, so he had someone start to keep an eye on the party.
We need to put that down too, is the shadow thieves.
Like, could you not? Maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Xanathar.
Emblem, and also I think the Parade of Chaos, right? Like they went into that the amount of civilian fallout when they were chasing that lady through the streets. Mm-hmm. That was pretty brutal. So yeah, I think that's a good excuse. Is he kind of just checking in on them with the Shadow Thieves emblem? Is he, what? Because I feel like there's other ways for him to kind of send this message. Although I, as the DM, have sent the message a lot. Right?
Yeah.
Emperor Riptide says, what if the career Xanathar wants to save is Black Razor's career, and he's done all this to push Thawne to redemption or Grayson to corruption so that he can he can further Black Razor's career. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I think the difficult thing here is the story right now is already very heavily centered around Thawne, right? And so to make the story even more about Thawne feels like we're cheating the rest of the players out of the spotlight a little bit, right?
Right.
And you know, when Amy was in the party and it was Tack's storyline, I thought it was okay because everybody else was somehow a little bit involved in it. But this has really kind of become this support beam that doesn't have any other floating skeleton around it to put any meat on, right?
Yeah.
It's just become. Yeah, I think there's definitely, as BSB Care points out, there's something to do with Ava's appearance, right?
Yeah.
Ava's destiny.
Ava, not Avril.
Not Avril. Yeah, I get confused too. We have a snoring pug over here. It's just sawing logs.
Yeah. Good old Harold. Hey, Addicted Decoy. Addicted Decoy says, I recently got recommended this series and been loving it. Thank you so much for watching. I watched the first episode, and at the end of session 0, Gaurav said he would love to have his character die and be resurrected. Maybe to redeem Black Razor.
His soul needs to go on the sword? Huh?
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that we've been talking about, Addicted Decoy, about how exactly Black Razor would be redeemed, how Thawne could be potentially redeemed if he needs to be redeemed, and lots of other things. So, yeah, that's not, I wouldn't say it's off the table, but I don't know if that's the plan necessarily.
Yeah, I haven't really thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to think about that. I like the idea. That's one of those things where I wouldn't want to like create the one true way that like as to tell the player this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
I would make an offering that would allow them to pursue that path. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that I would make that a definite thing. All right. So these are open plot elements. I can't think of anything else major off the top of my head. You know, the Shadow Thieves is a good one. I think we need to address this reforging Black Razor thing probably before the end of the year. I think before we really... So timeline-wise, we're looking at picking up Expedition to the Barrier Peaks on the other side of the new year. So I think it makes sense because it's been such a heavy plot line. It needs to somehow come up. You know, it needs to get addressed in the next 4 sessions. That's about what we got left.
Yeah.
And that's considering that maybe the one before Christmas is a special one-off or something, right? So
Christmas episode, holiday special.
The redemption of Black Razor. I was talking to my mom the other day, and I'm like, "Don't you have some TV to watch? The Hallmark Channel should have started their Christmas stuff." And she's like, "They started it November 1st."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my God."
Hey, Bathory, how you doing? Bathory Black Metal.
Welcome. All right, so those are some different plot elements that are open out there. I don't know. I think we've got some good ideas here. This is, I think, is going to have to come in later here.
Yeah.
There's some things that are like obvious to touch on, like this is why you caught my attention. I think the map is the most obvious one. The cult might be either a diversionary thing that he's not really worried about, or it could be a major thing where he's like, I want you to put this down and expose this thing to the light. Who knows? So that's great. Hey, are you ready? This is how you. Are you ready to take notes? We did it. So there are a few things that I want to talk about in terms of the actual dinner itself, right? And one of them is as has already been mentioned, Xanathar is not omniscient. That's got to be a big point, right? And this is just in terms of like me thinking about the structure of the encounter, right? So I want to make some quick points about the structure of the encounter. The second thing is we need to be prepared for the idea that the party blitzkriegs Xanathar, right? I think, as we've seen, there's the potential for the party to go, or specifically for Thawne to go, you know what, F this guy, let's take him.
I feel like they haven't. Xanathar has not openly threatened them in any way, or really been involved with them. So
Yeah.
it might be, they might. While Jinji had certainly ties to them that would have, pushed them. If they're not all 100% into the let's kill Jinji game, I doubt they'll be into that with Xanathar.
Yeah, but the thing with Jinji is they have a pre-existing history, right?
Right.
If they were to meet this, like the first time they met him, they wanted to kill him, right? But they were too threatened by him. They know that Xanathar is an evil crime lord. I don't think Grayson would have as big of a problem going, this guy is beyond redemption. I'm here to help you. Let's fire it up and go.
Yeah.
One thing that I think will be holding them back a little bit is they haven't gotten a long rest in. They've only gotten a short rest in.
Right.
So that puts them kind of back on their heels a little bit. BSB Care, to your point, I don't think you can cliffhanger on Xanathar wants to meet you, and then you go and meet his first lieutenant or whatever.
Yeah,
like
right.
that seems like it's not just it makes a lot of sense in terms of like real world makes sense, but it doesn't create a great dramatic moment. It feels like you've cheated the players out of something.
Right.
Xanathar needs a poor diplomacy trapdoor he can drop unruly guests into, Bond villain style, with Odiugs and rust monsters and whatnot. Yeah, I think the question here is you need to come up with a couple things. You need to come up with stats, and you need to come up with contingencies in terms of guards, etc.
The way I see Xanathar is like in World of Warcraft, when you just have question mark boss level, like he's untouchable. I don't know if the party would see him that way, but I mean it's certainly best to prepare for the worst, I guess.
Yeah.
But
see, I flip that around because to me it's Wizard's world,
yeah,
but it's our job to make it our own. And I think what makes a better kind of like I can't fucking believe it kind of moment than for a party to go, we killed Xanathar. Like we took him on and he wiped out half the party, but we beat him down, or we pulled off this really great trick and we actually defeated the guy who's supposedly like not defeatable. I don't think it's an easy fight, but I think one of the other things you have to be prepared here is how could they win?
sure, yep.
Because if they can't win, it's not a fun encounter. If I'm not saying make it easy, but if it's if through wit and guile and skill and a lot of luck of the dice they could pull it off, I think you have to be prepared to go, you know what, you pull it off. I remember I was playing in a home game, and there was this like 20th level paladin, right, who comes riding up, and he's got either a Holy Avenger or a Vorpal Blade or whatever it was. And he wasn't like lawful good or whatever. He was like a hired, maybe he was just a 20th level fighter. Anyway, so he had this like +5 sword, And we were 6th level or whatever, 7th level, and goaded him, and he decided to like start smacking us down, right? And I was playing this other dual wielding fighter guy, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna disarm him. And I critted my roll, right? And he failed his save, and he fumbles the sword. Now, you got two ways to go at that point, which is I grab the sword and run off, and that's that. Or something else happens. Now, in this case, he just kind of like holds his hand up and goes like this, and the sword teleports to his hand, and that's that. It was not, like, it wasn't satisfying.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we already knew the guy was a badass.
Right.
Right? And, okay, maybe it wasn't our appointed moment to kill him or confront him, but through wit and guile and the luck of the dice, we got the upper hand on him, and the DM, through sort of like DM fiat, swept all that stuff aside.
Sure.
And I don't think that makes for good drama or satisfying play experience.
Yeah, it's not ultimately fulfilling.
So I think that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. I think another important thing is what's really on offer here. Why does he want to meet them? That's the main thing. Like, what's the deal? And then I think maybe the fourth and last point is that this is an opportunity to take a 20th plus level NPC and describe their abode and to really enter the realm of the fantastic, right? What is a master crime lord's lair like? Are they going into his inner sanctum? Are they taking him to is he taking them to sort of his like meeting interrogation chamber or whatever? What does that look like? This is an opportunity to get away from our standard kind of boring urban fantasy tropes of, there's a inn, a tavern, and a bar, and the docks, and and the castle, and really go, all right, if you had essentially an unlimited budget and you could compel, you could hire the world's most depraved artisans or whatever to create your lair, what would that be like? And I think maybe one other point here is to show that Xanathar is in rarefied company. And what I mean by that is he's one of the top operators in Waterdeep, right? Okay, what's his peer group? What does that look like? Like, the people that he competes with are the archwizard of Waterdeep, whoever the head of the Church of Torm is. Like those are the people that he considers as peers and challenges and contemporaries. It is not some peon group of 5th level adventurers, right?
Right.
So there's an opportunity to demonstrate kind of like what level what sort of chess game that he's playing. Yeah. So, Addicted Decoy says, did we ever find out what happened to boots that Avril attuned to? They were Hargat's boots, and she found them while in the Iron Keep. I feel like they have a lot of items they do not use. I feel like you're probably right.
Oh yeah, she's got a freaking sentient
Havana
trident.
is also notorious for just kind of forgetting that she has a bunch of stuff. I mean, I don't think this is a particularly money or treasure heavy game, right? Like, that's not the point. I think it's far more story driven, which is fine. That's the way I like it, and that's why I think it's a compelling watch. But yeah, you're right. They do definitely forget about what those things are or do.
No, I don't think she ever attuned to them. I think she put them on, but she never took the time to do that. Which they could be great. They could really help her out.
I mean that sort of stuff. I kind of feel like if the players forget about it and it's not important to the story, I'm not going to go out of my way as the DM to kind of bring it back up. Because for one, obviously they're being successful without it. it isn't making a difference whether they have it or not.
Sure.
And then number two, it's a little bit of a dick move as the DM to go, oh, well, those boots that you found in August actually do X, Y, and Z. And then it just seems like you're just sort of rubbing their face in it. Like, oh, okay, you're not paying attention to my game,
Right.
and I have all this stuff planned out, and you're not, it feels like you're being ungrateful kind of is the way it kind of comes across a little bit. I don't think it was ever canonically established what Ronald PP Dusty Bones, what the PP stands for. I'm not sure that we want to know what the PP. I'm sure Havana has a good answer.
Pretty parched.
It's another one of those things that I'm not a big fan of having a lot of pets in the party. It really complicates the initiative order. It drives me nuts. They end up saying stuff like, well, let's send Ronald PP Dusty Bones into the next room or down the hallway or whatever it is. And it takes all of this, it sucks all the stakes. In one of my home games, the party literally has like 3 different bears that they've somehow adopted. And technically, it's 2 bears that they've adopted and 1 bear that the druid can turn into on command. But it's just like for whatever reason, it's very bear heavy, and it drives me crazy. I'm like, you've got this 800-pound creature that just follows you around all the time and doesn't ever attract any notice and doesn't ever get in any trouble. Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that she never uses the flute to
bring a body back.
Yeah.
She thinks about it. I mean, it has played an important role, especially when she reanimated Belloc and brought him back to Oakhurst, and then they cast Speak with Dead on him. So, So this is I think in terms of this thing, like Realm of the Fantastic, like, are they actually going to have a dinner?
Yeah. But it's just going to be Mountain Dew and...
Mountain Dew and Cheetos.
Yeah. I imagine Xanathar just in his lair, just that's all.
Well, so that raises the question, because he's not a typical beholder, but he's not been statted up. But I don't have a lot of information to go on, so I think BSBK is in the middle of an idea. Dinner with Vader on Cloud City. That scene was very brief, though, was the thing, right? And this is going to be, I think, a more involved role-playing exchange. I don't think we can just get away with, I've altered the terms of the bargain or whatever.
Right.
And also that scene says, oh, okay, well, it really, what it does is it cuts those characters off from the heroic path of action, right? What happens next is they get imprisoned, they get tortured, they have no agency, they are literally there to be bait for the real hero to come in and have a dramatic confrontation with the arch-villain. So in order to do that to our party of heroes, we would then have to shift to, okay, you guys are the rescue party who are coming to kidnap. And to be fair, that is an amazing technique that I've used to fantastic effect. I had a Gamma World party where they met some Soviet space monkeys. They're out in the atomic waste, and they met some Soviet space monkeys, and the space monkeys were like, "Oh, hello, comrade. We are friendly. Please come with us in our flying ship to meet friends." And they were like, "Okay." And they got in the flying ship, and the door like closes behind them and locks shut. And the next thing you know, they're like delivered into a cage, and they're made like test subjects. And I was like, I've got 2 options here. I can either come up with some really pathetic way that's like, oh, you managed to pick the lock and da-da-da-da. That's largely implausible. Or what I did instead was cut to this space station where there's these mech commanders who were like, we need to do a rescue mission and we got to get these guys out of here. And then the players played the rescue party for their own party.
Right.
It was fantastic.
Right.
It really worked.
Technically, aren't they 6th level now?
Technically, they have to take a long rest before they turn 6th level. Emperor Riptide says, what if you play on the theater attic part of Xanathar? So even the meal is a show, Iron Chef style. The party are guest judges. So they have dinner while strange things go on in the background, and you can throw in some Asmodeus clues in the background or whatever. I like that idea a lot. That's interesting.
I'm not following this thread that Matt sees or that DJ Regular is talking about here.
Oh, about the rat, I believe. His pet rat that he had.
Yeah, so I think that could be it could be interesting if there was some sort of theater or entertainment going on during dinner. You know, I could see some very like disturbing Cirque du Soleil kind of like torture and dismemberment stuff happening at Xanathar's whim. You know, that's those sorts of things you have to kind of define the line for what's tasteful for the group and for the play experience. But I could see something where, you know, somebody who's cheated him is slowly being lowered into a tank of water up to his neck, and then it's slowly being boiled or whatever, something like that. Yeah.
I would imagine that would trigger the party into action.
Yeah, maybe so. I think also Xanathar. We'll put one last. I don't know if we have room for one last. All right. I think it's entirely reasonable for Xanathar to underestimate them. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's that's something that I think needs to get highlighted. Is that he's probably this is an act of hubris for him to just bring them into wherever they bring him. I like the idea that he might be an opponent of the cult of Asmodeus. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe they're not the only guests at the party, right? Maybe he has several people at the party and he expects them all to entertain in order to, you know, whoever entertains him the most will win an audience with him and the other ones will die. That could be an interesting way to have a skill challenge portion of the evening as well as this role-playing scene.
Right.
I kind of like, I like that idea a lot.
Addicted Decoy suggests that Xanathar has no clue about Basharla. So will her story be completely separate, or perhaps they can find out some information about the corruption that Basharla imparted to Ava to help her fulfill her duty of removing that corruption?
Yeah, when I look at, like, you know, ways like how could they win, I think it's important, and especially he's not omniscient. I think it's a very salient point that he doesn't know who Ava is and assumes that she's just a schmo like everybody else. You know, she doesn't necessarily overtly present as the avatar of a god in any way. Mm-hmm. Xanathar should love Ava's jokes.
Yeah, Xanathar is non-binary, so yeah.
If it's possible for Xanathar to underestimate them, how did he ever get to the position he's in? To be that hubristic seems out of character. Well, that's true. I mean, number one, like, if he doesn't know who Ava is, that might be a plausible oversight. Also, I think we have to, like I said, we have to entertain the idea that he is somehow fallible. Otherwise, it becomes a very heavy-handed, you're play acting for the whim of the DM, as opposed to you are participating in this and have some agency in the outcome.
Right. Last episode was a lot of Gingy kind of telling them what the deal was,
right,
and them not, you know, really being able to act upon anything. And so if Xanathar is sort of doing the same thing, then it gets from a game meta standpoint, it gets a little repetitive. But it's also what is Xanathar going to present to them that, you know, can engage them in a way other than a potential fight, right?
This what's on offer also comes up with what do they have, right? What do they have that he might want?
Mm-hmm.
the answer might be nothing, but I think it's an interesting question to pose. Is what would the party have that he want? The obvious answer would be the map. But I think it's an easy pitfall to go, okay, he's a top crime lord. He can have anybody assassinated that he wants to. He can force anybody to do anything that he wants. He can either buy them out or outright torture it out of them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he has been painted as somebody who's ruthless, or at least I've said it a bunch of times. I don't know whether it's sunk in with the players or not. Like, I don't know whether they have taken that message to heart.
Right.
And even though I've said it a bunch of times, and I said, don't flash your Shadow Thieves emblem around, that hasn't stopped them from doing it.
No.
And
it gets results, but I don't know if it's the results they want.
Yeah. And he may not know about the prison, right? I mean, I think that's a huge way that this whole thing could be resolved in the party's favor. Is I don't know whether Gurav would think of it or not, but he could imprison Xanathar.
That's true. Yeah.
Then it just becomes a fight with the guards and the capo and, all of the various minions, which could still be incredibly tough. And the other question that's presented there is, if Xanathar goes into the prison, somebody's got to come out. Who comes out? Is it his dad? Is it somebody random? Who
Sir
is
Eldrick.
it? Sir Eldrick shows up? Oh, imagine that! That would be so great! That would be really great. So I love that idea. So Emperor Riptide brings up the idea that Xanathar has an anti-magic eye. I think the problem there, so reading the Waterdeep source material that I have, Xanathar is an ancient beholder, and he's lost the use of several of his eye stalks, including his central anti-magic eye. So that's a piece of canon that I'm going to try and, or at least that's a piece of canon from my AD&D source books that I want to keep a hold of, right? It seems like from Xanathar's Guide to Everything that he's fine.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Everything's cool with Xanathar. But I don't know that that's the way that I want to. Yeah, I was curious, what would the book do? I don't think it would just release everything. I think you just wouldn't have access to the dimensions where everything's stored, right? Mm-hmm. So if he was in an anti-magic zone with the book, it's not a question of all of a sudden all these things are show up. It's that you can't get to the prison because it's more of a doorway than it is the actual prison. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like the prison is not magical necessarily. It's I don't know. It feels like a different, because Black Razor is certainly magical, but getting to the prison might be a magical sense, but the prison itself is sort of almost on a different plane. There's not a lot that you can do about that once you're there. Was it BSB Care? Or no, Christian says that he could have more power from within the prison.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I sense him being like the kingpin. Like, sure, you put him away, but now what? Like, now you got everyone in this prison starting to turn against you.
I mean, we could go really deep on this whole thing, and maybe Xanathar's whole point in getting them together is there's an original Xanathar. As Richard McSundy says. Perkins made a point about how they envision Xanathar as almost a title at this point, that there have been many Xanathars and the current one is just one of several. If that's the case, maybe there's a more powerful Xanathar in the Book of Thorns and he wants to get that guy out.
Sure, yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Oh, Thon, I have an offer for you.
Yeah.
I need you to get me somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen then.
I like the Emperor Riptide says that the anti-magic eye could murder the sentient weapons briefly, which could put the fear of God. Although Wave has done
no harm to anyone.
Hey,
Poor
I
Wave.
just, oh,
Yeah.
I guess I'm dead.
I think if I'm going to include the anti-magic eye, I'll give you a little insight into what I'm thinking on this particular piece of the encounter. I think it would be interesting if his eye had been removed, and it's something that's maybe like manned by a couple staffers or something like that, or like he keeps someplace because it's too inconvenient to have his eye closed the entire time. So he had it taken out.
His
It
eye
still
patch.
has the power. Yeah, just a giant
eye
single
patch.
eye patch. And it's more like a veil. Yeah, I wish I had some kick-ass art for this thing, but I don't know if I'll bother to go searching for it. There's certainly plenty of kick-ass beholder art out there that I could gently lift from the internet. But yeah, so I'm not sure. I think it would be interesting, though, if it was a fixture, it was a piece of furniture, it was an element in the location, as opposed to something that was part of the creature, right?
Right.
That's one of those like twist and reveal kind of things, right? So yeah, I don't know. There's places to go with that. Yeah.
That's like a zombie one, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's tons of them. All right. So at any rate, that kind of brings us to our time. I love the ideas that we have kicked around. It certainly helps me get a fix on where we're going with tomorrow night's session. I'm curious how it's going to play out,
Yeah.
but I think we've had a lot of great. I have the cover of Waterdeep in the North, and it does have a badass Xanathar. Everything about that cover is badass except for the Drow cheesecake that's on that cover, which is just like, very 1987 or
Is
whatever
it
it was.
Elmore or?
No, it is. I know the guy too. It's not Clyde Caldwell.
Keith Parkinson.
Keith Parkinson. Yeah, it's a Keith Parkinson cover, and it is very, very cool. Except if you do an image search on that, it's very cool. But that's the big one. The cheesecake bikini drow who's serving the food is little bit much for me. I think Christian Leckie brings up a point that I do have to kind of pay homage to, which is this whole goldfish thing. Like he's got a pet goldfish. I don't know what it means or how it figures in, but it's got to play an important element in the story. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in how rebellious the party is, but I feel like they do not give a shit about who they talk to, and they're willing to start a fight to buck back against anybody, no matter who it is. I especially Havana's character doesn't care about the rules that much. She wants to do what she's gonna do, right? So, I feel like I really have to have contingencies for if they choose to attack, if some sort of flare-up happens or whatever. But I do love this idea of you've been invited to perform for essentially Jabba the Hutt, right? And then whoever pleases the master is going to have a place at the table on the slave barge.
So maybe he's seen Ava and Avril do their audition.
I mean, yeah,
Maybe.
the whole idea that it ties in that he's a patron of the theater is amazing, right?
The goldfish is Xanathar.
Well, that would be a really interesting play on the whole thing, right? All right, so that's our life. That's where we're at. That's I think we've had a really terrific discussion today. We covered a lot of different bases. We covered the recap. We talked a little bit about DMing style tips and tricks, especially when it comes to running a mystery or improvising during your session. What if it was Xanathar's play and they're gonna make him act? He's gonna make the party act it out.
Yeah. Since you ruined my play.
Yeah, we did have one kind of. We had that audition scene between the two of them. if we could pull it off, if there would be a way to like, if we had cliffhangered it on, now you have to perform a play for me, and then cut, and then the players had a week off to kind of come up with their own little skit, whatever it was, and then perform it, like decide what the performance would be the following week. Then I think I'd try and pull it off. I think it'll be more likely like have them improvise their act on the spot rather than make them follow a script or whatever.
Tiny little
So.
aboleth.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, if you want to see how this plays out, you can. They'll have a rap battle. throw down with Xanathar. If you want to see how this plays out, you can tune in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Pacific for our next installment of the Ironkeep Chronicles. Tonight is it the finale?
Season
The
finale.
season finale of
Uncanny
Valley, our Chronicles of Darkness campaign, GM'd by is he America's GM? No, that's David
Nope.
Crennan.
Yeah.
Is he California's GM?
Sure.
Sure. America California's GM,
Stephen Pope.
Stephen Pope. I knew who it was. I was
I
adding
know.
a dramatic pause.
I'm just helping. I'm the hype man here.
He's okay. Hype. Speaking of America's GM, tomorrow night, or not tomorrow night, Thursday night, you can join us at 8 p.m. Pacific for Crit Juice. The Crit Juice crew. No Crit Juice this week? What's
No.
going on this week, Dom Zook?
Jeez,
Give me an exclamation point calendar and let me know what's going on.
what's happening?
What is
Oh,
happening?
right. It's Thanksgiving this week.
Oh,
so,
shit. Yeah, everything is wrong. I won't be here on Thursday either.
Yeah.
You guys get to enjoy turkey or whatever your particular... If you're in Canada, you get to hear Americans talking about how great Thanksgiving is, and you're like, oh, yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah. It's American Thanksgiving, so sorry Canadians, but the real Thanksgiving has come.
I'm married to a Canadian, so...
You get to celebrate
we
it
didn't,
twice.
We didn't celebrate it in
Oh,
October either, so...
Yeah, so tomorrow we've got Ironkeep Chronicles, and then we are off the rest of the week until Monday. However, starting on Thursday at noon, we are starting a Wildcards marathon. So seasons 1 and 2 of Wildcards will be on the vodcast, and we'll be popping in and out. That's Thursday at noon. So cast will be popping in and out. You can go visit our Discord. And you can chat with us there, where I know there's been some discussions about season 3 and other things going on. So yeah, Turkey Day Wildcards Marathon. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you guys enjoyed the Black Bag Marathon that we did yesterday. We unfortunately we had some illnesses and some absences, so we weren't able to do the episode like we wanted to. So we decided to do the marathon, which was, I think, a lot of fun. But anyway, yeah.
So yeah, join us tomorrow night. Are you doing a proficiency
Nope.
check this week? No.
Nope.
Look, it's a short work week for everybody,
Yeah.
including us here at Saving Throw. But
I was here all day yesterday. So
Yeah, exactly.
working, but-
Also, we are approaching the end of the
Tomorrow,
month,
too.
so if you are so inclined to back our Patreon, we have recently retooled that. You can actually have one of America's or California's or whatever continent's GMs run a game for you if you pledge at the $100 mega donor level. So
Yeah.
you can do that.
Council of Magi.
While you're putting together your Black Friday budget, maybe get a friend
Right.
a little Patreon subscription to Saving Throw.
Yeah, gift them. You can also gift subscriptions on Twitch. Is a new thing now. So think about that. I guess. They have stuff on their blog about gifting it. I think above us in the subscription area, if you already have a subscription, it will probably say gift a subscription. If you don't have a subscription, then it will just say subscribe. But all of that helps and keeps this little independent channel cooking with gas and keeps us fed.
That's how we can afford the light up shield, you guys.
Yeah.
That is literally one of the only reasons. That is the only
Yeah.
reason.
Well, I mean, we found a shield and we repainted
Yeah.
it, and then
The-
we put some lights.
It's the light up part of it that's
The
cool.
light up
Come on,
part,
that's
yeah.
the part that costs money, guys. Anybody can take a trash can and paint a D20 on it. Not that that's what we did, but I'm saying that if you enjoy the content that we are producing here and we're trying to bring a level of professionalism to it, even if we don't personally necessarily
Real
always live
shield.
up to that. Please support the channel in whatever way, shape, or form you can with this, financially or doing an Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch Prime. Yeah, you made a knocking noise, and now Harold is
Yeah.
upset.
No, it's all right. It was just the shield.
It was just a shield. It wasn't the garbage can. We're not gonna throw you in the garbage, Harold. Don't worry.
Hey, come here. You're all right.
And even if you have Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch Prime subscription. You could use that on us. If you don't have any of those options available to you, hey, you can just share the good word of Saving Throw on social media.
Yeah.
That's the easiest, cheapest, coolest thing you can do is tell everybody about the shows that you love and why you love them.
Throw it on Reddit. If you're on Reddit, go to Reddit. Talk about it on Reddit. Talk about it on any forums that you go to. G+, any tabletop forums, things like that. It's it really
Help us raise the profile organically.
yeah,
'cause
it
that's
really
just,
goes a super long way for us. So thank you.
All right. Big thanks to all of our mods, Fawquad, and the rest of our regulars here who keep the channel so clean, accessible, and friendly. Really appreciate that. I already took a picture of both of these notes, so not only that, I can go back and screen cap this on the VOD, because I'm a subscriber. So, yeah, good stuff here in the hopper. I can't wait to see how it plays out tomorrow. Until then, this is really it is counterintuitive. We should Let's Dungeon at the top of the show. Why do we Let's Dungeon at the end?
Well, we don't Let's Dungeon at Ironkeep, so we're really actually doing a pre-Let's Dungeon before Ironkeep.
Oh, yeah. In order to get ready for the Iron Creek Chronicles, Let's Dungeon!
Yeah, I think that worked really well.
We're 1 for 2.